So first up, I'm taking a look at some of the fabrics that I've collected over the years, and the ones that I find best for this actual technique is cotton fabric. Usually bedding or curtains are pretty good for this technique as long as the fabric has a high thread count and it is quite fine in its density. It will go on the surface of a piece of furniture beautifully well. Why choose fabric decoupage over so many wonderful products out there for furniture decorative embellishments? Well, fabric usually has a larger pattern match, which means you can end up with some amazing finishes with the larger pattern sizes of different types of fabrics. This one, for example, is William Morris. It's an absolute classic design, and I think it would look awesome on a piece of furniture. Also, I have here some old bedding. This is actually a pillowcase. I do have a full bedding sheet, and the colorway is just fabulous. Fabric designs tend to be amazing when it comes to floral designs. So let's jump into today's project. I have this most amazing 1930s gentleman's wardrobe with all of these beautiful curves and undulations to the front of the door, and I think this will really look fabulous with fabric decoupage, almost imitating a curtain itself. To start the project, I'm going to remove the door front so we can work the decoupage just on that door panel where I think it'll look amazing, and then we can add paint to the sides of this project just to make everything tie together beautifully. I've decided to keep the handle, which is in the center of the door. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. It's the right shape for the piece. So I'm carefully removing that and placing all of the pieces into a bowl, not to lose any of the original hardware of this overall piece. Now it's time to prepare for my fabric decoupage on my door front. So the day before this process, I give the whole piece of furniture a good old clean and allowed it overnight to completely dry out so there is no moisture in the timber surface before I started to paint the door front. Now you're probably wondering, if I'm sticking fabric over the top of the door, why would I be painting it? There are a number of reasons why I've chosen to paint it. One of which is fabric decoupage is very similar to any other decoupage. Having a light base colour really does allow the lighter areas in your fabric. So if you have any white in your fabric, it really will show through that little bit lighter. The other reason is this base coat, and as you can see, I'm using quite a neutral colour. I think this was French linen and old white mixed together because we're working with a darker fabric. But if you're using a white background fabric, then you probably would need to go with pure or old white at this stage. But what this will do, it will allow you to see whether the piece of furniture is going to give you any bleed through, and that can be all rectified ahead of time. Believe it or not, fabric decoupage, you can get bleed through to the surface of your project. So be very mindful of that. If you have a clean finish with this top coat, then you are good to go with your fabric decoupage once your paint has thoroughly dried through. Now time for something a little different in my studio. We have the iron and the ironing board to prepare the fabric. This is something that I definitely would advise. Make sure that you're pressing out all of the wrinkles ahead of using your piece of fabric. And as you see, I've opted for that beautiful black floral. These were once curtains in a previous property of ours, and they didn't fit any of the window sizes in the new house. So why not turn them into a glorious piece of furniture? What a wonderful design this fabric truly has. Once your fabric is pressed and ready for your project, it's now time to cut your fabric to the size of your door. Now, please don't worry about cutting the exact shape of the overall door. You need an overhang of a couple of inches all the way around the sides. This is something that I will address how to remove that a little later on. Of course, my door has all of the undulations on the surface, so I'm allowing a little extra fabric around the edges. So this is the glue that I've decided to use today. It's PVA glue. In other countries, it's just white craft glue. So you may have a product that is very similar to this. It dries clear, it goes on white. I've decided to mix 10% water in my PVA glue because it is rather thick. So we're going to pop that into a ceramic bowl and mix in that 10% of water ready for the application. On this project, I've decided to start from the center of the wardrobe door front. Now, this is something that I wouldn't advise to do generally, not unless you have a project like mine with all of the ridges and undulations. The best way to start is probably from top to bottom or side to side, just applying about 10 centimeters of glue on your first pass. Apply your fabric to the surface, fold back the fabric, and then apply more glue as you go along, pushing down all of the fabric into the surface of the glue. Make sure that you get your fabric the correct way up before you start the process. It took me quite a while to work out which way this fabric should be. I've left those large cabbage roses with the shadow facing downwards. So at this stage, I'm spreading out the fabric, making sure that I have a great amount of overhang before I start pushing into the middle ridge, and I'm using my fingernails to get really good contact to contact over that first little ridge. You should see glue pooling through the fabric at this stage. Certain fabrics will do this slightly more than others, but this is a good sign that the glue is traveling all the way through the fabric and there is plenty of glue to the surface. Another great tool other than your hands is an old credit card. This will really help you spread out that fabric down to the surface of the door front. So here you go, I'm pushing into that really tight lip. You can slightly see the sheen of the glue coming through. Remember, don't worry about that. It will dry completely transparent and we will be applying another coat of glue over the top surface once this is all on the door front. So I'm working slowly does it into that little lip, and then I'm going to work over that first lump, pushing slightly outwards, working generally from the center outwards to one side, and then I will flip the project around and work the other side. So here you can see me just peeling back the fabric to the place where I applied the very last section of glue. I'm going to add some more glue to the rest of that door front and start smoothing out. After repeating the process on the other side of the door, all my fabric was down nice and smooth. So it's now time for drying. I decided to take a short tea break and leave my door in the sunshine outside of my studio. Now, I would not advise to do that because what happened with this fabric, I got one or two anomalies, air bubbles underneath the fabric. I think it's a lot to do with the overall colour of the black fabric being quite hot in the sunshine and creating these anomalies. So how I fixed that was to spray the surface again with a little bit of moisture. The glue underneath was still damp, so it allowed me to push out the air through the fabric, making sure that I had good contact with the fabric once again. Then I chose just to leave this indoors for a good 12 hours to dry naturally. So don't use any heat, just allow it to dry naturally. Every now and again, take another close look. If you have any of those problems, just dampen the surface and rectify the issue before allowing it to completely dry out to the surface and underneath. As I wait for the glue to dry on the door, I've decided to paint the exterior of the wardrobe in the colour graphite, just to tie the colour of the background of the fabric to the rest of the piece of furniture. And also it was time to choose a colour for the interior of the wardrobe. Now generally I like a colour pop, a bit of contrast when it comes to choosing a colour. I tend to look at the pattern design and pick one of those colours, but for some reason on this project I went with my very favourite colour mix at that time, and that was Amsterdam Green and Furl. It's pretty much the same colour as my workbench. It's a bright zesty green, and there was none of that colour in the fabric choice. I'm still not quite sure why I went that way. I think I should have probably gone for a purple. This is one thing, if I still had the wardrobe, I would have changed out a little later. The other thing was, you'll see it at the end and I'll point it out, there was some gold leaf design that I added to the handle, and I should have also added it to the motif at the top, but you'll catch that at the end. There were two things that I most definitely would have changed in the project had I kept this project, but it sold so very quickly, I just didn't get a chance to change it. So, in with the colour mix of the Furl and Amsterdam Green, still my favourite colour by the way, and I still like it in the internal of this cabinet. But let's get a coat of that on, and then I'll leave it all to dry overnight, ready to finish the door front. I'm now day 2 of my project and the fabric has dried beautifully, nice and smooth, no air pockets. So it's now time to prepare for the glue to go over the top of the fabric to seal everything down. And as you can see, I'm using my plant spray once again just to atomize the surface to allow the glue to spread nice and freely. So I'm going to go back in with a healthy amount of glue. So the idea is the glue that came through the fabric to the top surface will meet the glue from the top surface meeting the substrate below, if that makes sense. So liberal amounts of glue, and especially on the edges all the way around the project. This is kind of crucial for the steps that you will see later on in the process. So all of this lip, healthy amount of glue all the way around the edges, and of course the internal panel. Just spread out that glue. The glue will look kind of white at this stage. It will be kind of opaque, but once it's all dried, it will become translucent and be the perfect top coat to receive any other treatments, such as waxing, after the whole project is complete. After just a few hours, you will find the top surface will dry much quicker than the lower surface underneath the fabric. So you can see on the leading edge why we applied a lot of glue. It's gone all kind of crispy and wrinkly on the edges of the cabinet, which leads me to the removal of all of that surplus fabric. We are going to use a craft knife or an X-Acto blade around all of the edges just to trim off this surplus fabric. With the glue being in the fabric right the way through, this will lead you to cut the edges of the fabric so cleanly, almost like removing dry paper from the edge. So we're going to go in with a smaller craft knife and work around all of the edges of this cabinet to the edge of the wooden timber. So we're going to make a nice clean cut directly with the edge of the door front. as you carefully make your way around all of the edges. Don't worry if you have any slight lift up on the edges. This is quite normal. You can go back in with a art brush and just touch up the glue to those areas. The biggest thing is to make a nice clean cut with no frayed edges, ready for the completion of all of the painting around the edges of the door. I decided to keep the original handle for this wardrobe just because the size and scale for the overall piece was just absolutely perfect. So I went in with a coat of graphite. I've left that to dry and I've decided to go with some metallic leaf in the colour gold. So first up, I'm applying some gold size, which really doesn't take that much time to dry, about 15 minutes. You will see that it will become very translucent. It will leave a sticky residue ready for the gold leaf to stick to the surface. Annie Sloan has two different types of metallic leaf, one of which is loose leaf, very traditional, and the other is transfer leaf. They both come in the same three shades, either gold, copper, or silver. I would say if you've never used gold leaf before, opt for the transfer leaf. I think it's a little more user-friendly when it comes to handling it. It's less fragile. It's stuck to a backing sheet, which makes for so much easier when it comes to handling the product. So once you've applied your gold size, it will eventually go translucent and tacky to the touch. And you should know this by just tapping your finger on it. It should be very tacky to the surface. This is just about ready for application of your transfer or your gold leaf. So I'm using transfer today, and I'm just going to be turning it over and gripping the handle, allowing some cracks to appear. If there's any spaces where there's dead area that you want to fill in, save all of those little bits. You can fill them in afterwards just to get a solid finish. So we're nearing the end of the project. I've rehung the door and put the new gold leafed handle on the front. I've decided to leave the back of the door and the shelves completely naked without any paint finish there because of these gorgeous little signs on the shelves and the back of the door. I think it looks absolutely beautiful. One thing that I will be doing is giving the back of the door and the internal colour a coat of clear wax, and the external of the piece I've decided to go in with Annie Sloan black wax, which should turn the graphite into a darker colour just to tone in with the background colour of the fabric. Before I say my final goodbye on this project, I'm just wondering whether you picked up on the other thing that I might have changed on this project. Many of you followers that originally watched this project said it so many times, and I just didn't see it when I was working on the actual piece at the time. There is a beautiful carved detail at the top of this wardrobe that really should have gone with the gold leaf to match in with the handle. I couldn't agree more with all of your opinions on that. Had I have kept it, I would have gone back and done that at a later date, but unfortunately, like I said, it found a new home very, very quickly. Anyhow, this is one of my favourite projects that I've done over the years. I hope you've enjoyed a revisited look at the overall project. If you've enjoyed it, leave me a comment, give me a like, or even better, subscribe if you're new to my channel. Thank you once again. I will catch you all very soon.